thank you guys all for being here today. We're going to start, hopefully, with the basics. So, Ali, could you tell me, for those of us without a PhD in math, why quantum presents a threat to cybersecurity?
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, I guess we can start from the basics. The quantum computing, where it brings a lot of advantages over classical computing when it comes to quantum simulation and potentially other applications. It comes with a threat to our classical cryptography infrastructure. And this is due to an algorithm that was developed by Peter Shor that basically attacks the underlying mathematics of RSA and elliptic curve cryptography and can basically solve the integer factorization problem and discrete logarithm problem in polynomial time efficiently, right? So that's basically the impact of quantum computing on cybersecurity. Think of cybersecurity as an infrastructure where there is a public key cryptography layer, which is essential. And that public key cryptography layer relies on math. This math is easy on a quantum computer. That's basically the story. The problem is this public key cryptography layer is used almost everywhere. So independent of what you use at, encrypting data at rest or other places, the communication, which is the essential piece that you want to encrypt and make sure that it is secure, it is the one that is broken on a quantum computer.
So how worried should businesses, how worried should normal people be about this? Like how soon should we be worried? I've heard about harvest now, decode later. Could you explain what that means?
Sure. So worried really means assessing the data, how sensitive the data that you're exposing to the internet or transferring through communication protocols, and for how long you would like this data to stay confidential. That's basically the story here. And it differs from one to another. Some people use the internet for particular type of data that its lifespan is minutes or hours. That's not affected by quantum computing. Others who use communication protocols for data that is of sensitive nature and needs to be and stay confidential for years, the longer it needs to stay confidential, the higher the risk is. That's basically how you can assess it. And it's always about how valuable the data is and identifying where valuable data what valuable data you have and how it's being exposed and what vulnerabilities you have in your cybersecurity infrastructure, as in where public key cryptography is being used.
Okay, so to simplify things, the main problem is that a lot of the data that we have encrypted right now, because of quantum computers, at some point, that could just be easy to read, everyone can have access to it, and that would make a lot of people very sad indeed. What are we supposed to do about that? Can you talk about cryptographic modernization, I believe is the term?
Yeah. So I'll explain cryptography modernization, but let me focus a little bit because I did not focus on the harvest now, decrypt later. So to explain this terminology here, basically whatever we're exchanging now over the internet as in a digital form, albeit encrypted, people can access it, people can store it. Whether it's WhatsApp that you're using, whether it's your connection to a particular server, whether it's your VPN connections, any communication protocols that you have and goes through public channels, right? Even if it's encrypted, it's accessible. People can access it, intercept, and can store. And that is why the lifespan of the confidentiality of your data matters a lot, because people can store it and keep it until they get access to a quantum computing machine that can break the cryptographic layer and they can decrypt it. So what you can think of now is the risk is everything that you are exchanging, every data that you're exchanging, whether it's sensitive or not, is basically readable in the coming years. The problem is we don't know how many years that will take, right? And unlike what investors think, in the sense that, well, we don't know when it's going to happen, so that's a high risk, etc. In terms of their investment, for security experts, it's also a high risk, because if you don't know when it's going to happen, then that's not something reassuring. Right? If we knew that it's going to happen exactly in 10 years, then we're in a better situation, or exactly in 20 years, or exactly in 1 year. But we don't know anything about that, and things could happen at any point in time. Everything that people talk about are predictions, and in cybersecurity, predictions are not useful. Like, nobody relies on predictions, and I guess the other questions will cover the other pieces. But when it comes to cryptography modernization that Abby asked about, what happened with us now and why we are in trouble at the moment is the fact that a bunch of very smart mathematicians came up with algorithms back in 1970s and 80s and 90s that are called RSA and elliptic curve cryptography. We called those algorithms, modern cryptography, by the way. So the first time modern cryptography was used is basically when we came up with what we call public key encryption methods. And the fact that you can have two keys instead of having one key, you have two keys, a private key and a secret key, and there is a mathematical function between them that is easy to compute, hard to invert. That's basically the mathematical underlying mathematics of it. So they came up with those algorithms. We called them modernization of cryptography. We did not come up with anything other than that. There was some great research, but it never managed to make it to industry. And we heavily and totally relied on elliptic curve cryptography and RSA with no backup plan. And then what happened is Peter Shaw in 1994 came up with his algorithm that can solve integer factorization. But it so happens that integer factorization and discrete logarithm problem that underlies elliptic curve cryptography come from the same mathematical family of computational problems. And if you have an algorithm that attacks this, it attacks that as well. So modernization, the way we used it, I guess, was misused. Because modernization should make sure that if something wrong happens with a particular algorithm, then you should have a backup, right? And not only a backup, you should have a way to change from one algorithm to another in a smooth way without a huge disruption. That's basically, that's not something that happened. And we relied on RSA and elliptic curve. And now with the quantum computing threat and the change to what we call post-quantum cryptography that I will touch on in a minute, basically changing the underlying mathematics and going to math problems that are still difficult on a quantum computer, now is the time to actually modernize our cryptography and make sure that it is flexible, it's agile, and the way it is hardwired is very, very minimal, only when it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, it should be flexible, and you should be able to tune the parameters if there are attacks on the algorithms, and there will be attacks on any algorithms in reality. And if a particular algorithm becomes obsolete and that is not useful anymore, we should be able to change it. And everyone should be able to understand what crypto they're using, where they're using it, and why. Remember what happened is in 1980s and 1990s, the use cases of cryptography was mainly military driven, right? It was not a bank card, it was not a car key, etc. We were not there yet. And we took it for granted, and we started adding cryptography layer after layer after layer, to the extent that now everyone in their wallet has multiple cryptography pieces that they're not even aware of, right? And we don't know who's responsible for what. If an attack happens tomorrow, who's responsible for everything that we have in just our pocket, not anywhere else, which is chaotic, right? There must be a different way to handle cryptography, and that's basically what cryptography modernization is all about.
So it seems like we've put all of our eggs in the same basket right now with RSA. Like all of cryptography is reliant on this one class of algorithms, which just happen to be very breakable using quantum computers. Do you have a sense of like how far away that threat is? Like how long do we have? Like how urgent is this threat?
As I said, the fact that we don't know when it's gonna materialize is the source of the main worries that intelligence agencies and governments had back in 2015. Keep in mind that Shor's algorithms that breaks basically the underlying mathematics was developed in 1994. And it took NSA from 1994 to 2015 to identify quantum computing as a real threat. So it's not like, quick reaction. It's not a quick reaction here like NSA were scared and hey, let's go and change RSA. It took them like 21 years to think about it and see the advancement in quantum computing, right? And how this attack vector is evolving. And then they decided that it's a real threat and instructed another department within the US government to standardize alternative to RSA and elliptic curve cryptography. So I think we are past the point, that point in time where should we worry about quantum computing attacking our cryptography infrastructure or not? This was decided already in 2015 by NSA and agreed on with other intelligence agencies around the world like GCHQ and ANSI in France, BSI, etc. And we're at the point now, the worry is how long is it going to take us to move from this non-agile state that mainly relies on RSA and elliptic curve cryptography and start the transition to post-quantum cryptography, because that is a challenge given that a lot of people don't know where their crypto is and how it's being used and whether or not it's coming from them or from third-party vendor.
And is this transition, is it kind of all or nothing? Like, is it very important for every single person, every single communicator to be using post-quantum cryptography? Or is it kind of, okay, if half the people do it, that's better. If 3/4, that's even better. If 90%, that's even better. Or do we really need everybody to get on board?
So I think that it's less about people and more about protocols and devices, right? So if you tell me that WhatsApp or Signal decided to switch to post-quantum cryptography by the end of the year, we will probably all of us be very happy that, okay, this is one less thing to worry about, that if you're exchanging something valuable, sensitive data around your health or anything else, with your friends or relatives, then this will stay actually confidential for a longer period of time. So it's not, all or nothing. It's really how the ecosystem is evolving, how many protocols are being switched to be post-quantum secure, how many devices are being equipped with what they need to handle post-quantum cryptography, and therefore it's a responsibility that basically falls on the whole cybersecurity ecosystem. Us as consumers here using phones and bank cards, we have very little influence and basically power to actually change things. You're at the very end of that spectrum, waiting for WhatsApp to change it, waiting for Chrome browser to actually has post-quantum cryptography, and so on and so forth. That's basically what it is.
Awesome. And the orange flashing has started. So I wanted to give you a chance to we were talking earlier and you're saying that a lot of times people get post-quantum and quantum mixed up. Let's just take the next 30 seconds to clarify that distinction once and for all.
Yes. So post-quantum cryptography does not use any quantum computing, does not need any quantum computing. It's purely math-based and is being standardized by governments, mainly led by the US government and followed by majority of European countries and the rest of the world. It uses the same methodologies that we used with RSA and ECC on how to build public key encryption. Some things don't apply anymore, like Diffie-Hellman key exchange, etc. But it's basically math-based. It does not require any quantum technologies for it to work. Now, there are quantum technologies that can be used and will be used. They're not there yet. They will get there. But these are things that can work together. But as opposed to quantum cryptography is a self-contained field based on mathematics that can safely take us from RSA and elliptic curve cryptography to a state where we don't need to worry about quantum computing. It's not like we don't need to worry about attacks in general, because nobody should sell us this idea at all. Attacks will only get better on anything that you put on the internet or expose it to attackers, because they will find a way to attack it, and you have to always keep that in mind and keep ahead of attackers to make sure that whichever technology you're using, whichever methodology or encryption method you're using, you're actually keep upgrading it and making sure that it's safe to use.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause for...
Thank you.